What we see here is that there is an appliance that is fixed onto the upper molar, okay, with the help of a screw. Then it's fixed onto the lower molar, okay, and this component, this tube component, is holding the mandible in a forward position. So we can identify this as a fixed functional appliance. Now, fixed functional appliances are those appliances that are used to advance the mandible and correct a class 2 deficiency, a class 2 malocclusion because of mandibular deficiency, okay, or mandibular, in those cases where the mandible is retracted. Now, it works on the similar principle as that of functional appliance, like a twin block. However, because it is fixed, we don't have to worry about the patient cooperation part of it. Okay, now how do we identify what this appliance is and how will we differentiate it from the other options which are given in the question? So let's have a look at this appliance. This is a herbs appliance. Okay, now the herbs appliance was given by Emil Herbst, but it was actually popularized by Panchers. Okay, now this is a bilateral telescopic mechanism which uses a piston and a tube. So what is important? Bilateral telescopic mechanism. What do you mean when you say telescopic mechanism? Is there is one tube, okay, and there is another smaller tube of smaller diameter which fits into this tube. Okay, so this is what is known as telescopic mechanism. So if you see in this image here, there is a tube which is attached onto the crown of the lower canine, and there is a plunger or a piston that goes and attaches into the tube which is attached to the upper molar. Okay, so this helps to keep the length of this tube has to be selected according to how much protraction we want of the mandible, and this will keep the mandible in a protruded position and thereby bringing about the class 2 correction. Now, the main features of herbs are its components. So like I said, it has a piston and a tube component. So this is what they look like. They end in this circular shape. Okay, this is because these screws that are present, they go and fit into this. Okay, and that is how it is held in place. As you can see here, the circular portion of the tube or the plunger fits onto the crown or the band by the means of an axle, and then the screw is fit onto the place. So if you see from top, this is how it looks like. It can be welded either on a band or a crown. So if this is the band here, this is the welded portion, okay, which consists of this axle here, and then the end of the tube goes and fits onto it, and then a screw is placed to hold it in position. So this prevents breakages and this helps to hold it in place. Now this is what the appliance looks like when it is deactivated. Okay, they are separate components. Now this part will go and fit into this part. Now if you can notice, there are various types of herbs appliances. They can be banded, okay, here, or they can be crowned. They can be present on crowns. There are also acrylic bonded herbs appliances, and there are many modifications that have come for the appliance. So if you see in the image here, you can see that there is no crown present on the lower canine or the premolar. So this actually, in the image, what you see is a type of cantilever herbs. Okay, it's a cantilever type of herb. There is a crown on the upper and a crown on the lower, and from the lower crown there's a portion that extends anteriorly. Okay, so there are many types of herbs appliance. However, types of herbs is not a question that is usually asked in the exam. From this topic, what they can ask you is to identify the appliance and its characteristic features. Okay, so like how they gave in this question. Another important thing that they can ask you from this question is Ritto's classification. Now, Ritto's classification is a slightly advanced question, but such advanced questions we have seen in the AIMS examination. So although it may seem like something that you have never heard of in your undergraduation, these kind of questions can be asked in case you're attempting to give the AIMS exam, or sometimes they can even ask you this in the NEET examination. So it is good to have a basic idea at least about what the Ritto's classification is. So basically, Ritto classified the fixed functional appliances into three types. Okay, so there is a rigid, there is flexible, and there is hybrid. Okay, so these are the three types of appliances in a fixed functional appliance. So like here we saw there is a piston and tube appliance, right? So these are rigid appliances. However, in a Jasper jumper, we see that there are springs. So those are types of flexible appliances. Now, how do we differentiate herbs appliance from the other options which were mentioned in the question? So like I told you, the characteristic features of herbs is that it's a rigid fixed functional appliance. It's telescopic mechanism, right? That is the piston and the tube or plunger. Okay, and the third is the axle and screws. So, like I told you, there are different types of herbs appliances, various modifications are given, but this is what the basic herbs appliance is. This is what is characteristic to identify it. Okay. Another type of appliance that was mentioned in the options is the power scope. Now, if you look at the power scope here, this also has a telescopic mechanism. This part fits into this tube here. However, unlike the herbs appliance where you have to select the length of the tube, this is a one size that fits all. Okay, and the mode of attachment of the appliance onto the dentition is also different. So here you have there is a part which has this slot into which the wire will fit, which is then screwed into place, like you can see here. Okay, so this is the power scope. Now the Mara appliance, again, it's very characteristic because unlike the other fixed functional appliances, it does not extend up into the anterior region. It is limited only to the upper and lower molar. It has a very characteristic this U-shaped appliance which is held by these cams which are soldered onto the molar tubes. So again, Mara appliance is something that they will ask in the examination only to identify. They will not go into the details of Mara's appliance because it is a bit advanced. Okay, so at least you need to know what the appliance is and how it looks like so you can identify it. And lastly, we come to forces. Now, like I told you in the Ritto's classification, there is there's rigid, that like herbs. There is a flexible fixed functional like a Jasper jumper, and there's something known as hybrid, right? So this is actually an example of a hybrid fixed functional appliance. So if you see here, there is a flexible component in the form of a coil spring, okay, which is held in place by these rigid framework onto which this coil is fitted onto. Okay, so that is why it is a hybrid appliance. Now this is a very important point about the forces because this again can be asked as a separate question on its own, and also it is a very clinically relevant appliance because this is what is routinely used in orthodontic practice when you want to give a fixed functional appliance because it's very easy to use, easy to maintain, and tolerated well by the patients.